Our comic book nightmare is finally over. Meghan Fitzmartin's Tim Drake Robin ends at issue number 10. We've certainly seen these types of things happen, and even in a more embarrassing fashion. I remember Power Pack, I think, got canceled after 3 issues, but if it's supposed to be ongoing, 10 issues means you did a real bad job, and I completely agree with them. This thing never should have been greenlit, let alone made it to 10 issues, and here to review issue number 10 is Doc. How you doing, buddy?
I'm definitely better than Meghan Fitzmartin, because I'm not going to have to just wrap this fucking review up, smash it all together, and just be like, all right, and now it's done. Because that's certainly what this comic felt like.
Yeah, so it's a weird ending to something that never really should have been made. It's absolutely awful characterization of Tim Drake. I don't know who this version of Tim Drake is. Not only, he's had the sexuality change. He's got his boyfriend Bernard, which, whatever. It certainly doesn't help anything, but I don't think she's ever read a Tim Drake comic book. He's having this crisis of conscience. He's like, I've never known which door to go through. I've never known who I am. And Tim Drake is like the exact opposite of that. He always knew who he was. He always knew that he wanted to help people. And that's what made him feel different than the other Robins.
He was the one that went into it willingly, that actually tried to become a Robin and wasn't just, kind of conscripted into Bruce's war because he pseudo-adopted them. He went into everything he's done eyes wide open. And, he is almost as good, if not sometimes better of a detective than Batman. So him not knowing what door to go through is complete horseshit. Absolutely. A detective of his level would know what door to go through.
Well, and then they put him in like this, I guess it's supposed to be a maze, and maybe he's trying to figure out his life, and it's supposed to be, like the art is supposed to match his inner turmoil or whatever. The maze itself is like really stupid. This whole comic book is really stupid. Let's get into some of the details. Obviously, Riley Rossmo didn't illustrate the last few issues of this book. I don't know the name of this artist, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name because it's not really worth it. We'll never see this person illustrate a DC comic book again. I guess I could prefer it over Riley Rossmo because I don't like that art at all, but this is the kind of illustrations I would expect on a children's novel where every 20 pages they have an illustrated like thing of the characters. It's not really visual storytelling. It's pretty bad.
This is about as far from, visual storytelling medium than you could probably get, because there was no visual storytelling in this comic. It's sad when you have to get a comic book written as poorly as Meghan Fitzmartin's that ends up one where you have to rely exclusively on the narration and dialogue to understand what's going on. As bad as Riley Rossmo was, there was at least some degree of graphic storytelling in a lot of the issues. If you're relying on the story, the art to tell you the story in this is more like a fever dream than actual art storytelling.
Yeah, it's not very good. And obviously, the writing is really bad. And I don't think that Meghan Fitzmartin even knows what story she's trying to tell here, because there's not a whole lot to it. I guess the crux of it is there's this cult based on chaos, and they blame Batwoman for doing something. Maybe she took someone from the cult and freed their mind, and it sounds like they killed themselves afterwards. That's the way that I took it. And they blamed her, and she has to be sacrificed to, I guess, make up for the sin of taking this person away or whatever. And Tim Drake goes through this maze. He's having this crisis, like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I want to be. Didn't feel like Tim Drake. He finally makes it to the end, and we get one of the weirdest things ever. This apparently is what Meghan Fitzmartin thinks is heroic. And I get the symbolism. Yes, she did go to a Christian college, I believe, in Florida. And he basically says, Tim Drake says, I'm going to take her sin in your eyes on myself, and you're not going to kill her. You're just going to kill me. But then he decides he's not going to fight this cult that doesn't really appear to be a threat. He's just going to let him murder him.
She didn't know what the hell she was doing with this comic book. There's nothing in there that would make me believe that Tim was just going to, well, I guess it's time to lay down and die. There's nothing about Tim's character that would ever have said that he was going to do that.
Or the situation, Doc. I think that's the worst part. It didn't feel like when you got to that page, like, oh my goodness, the stakes are so high and the threat is so dangerous. The only way that he can save Batwoman is to sacrifice himself. It's not like when I watched that, what's that Denzel Washington movie where he's a bodyguard, but he's an alcoholic, and at the end, he sacrifices himself?
Yeah, Man on Fire.
Yeah, that movie's great. And at the end, there's nothing really he can do. If he wants to save the girl, he has to give a life for a life. But that's not the situation here. We've never even seen these people do anything, and he never even fights back. That's not heroic. That's pussy.
The Tim Drake we know, there's no way he just lays down and sacrifices himself while Batwoman is still there. He'd get her out of the situation, lie to them, act like he was going to lay down and just let them kill him, and then fight back. But he's not just going to blindly be like, all right, yep, just kill me, chaos monster things. And I totally trust that you're going to not kill Batwoman.
It was absolutely stupid. And that's the big setup. And that's supposed to be the big scene. While that is happening, we do have Bernard because he's the co-star of the comic book. He's not just a damsel in distress. He's actually a mover and shaker in here, because it turns out the dock workers are like, hey, Robin's been hanging out here a lot. That chaos cult was here last night, and I haven't seen him since then. He must be in real trouble. And Bernard's like, oh my God, he's in real trouble. So he goes and he talks to the other people in the marina. And then I guess, because he knows that Tim Drake is Robin, he starts going and recruiting all the other members of the Bat family, because apparently he can just find them. He knows where they live and how to get a hold of all these people. He even knew where Cassie and, God damn it, Stephanie Brown live or whatever. And they're like, oh my goodness, Tim's in trouble. They didn't act heroic either. And he's like, because he's supposed to be the focal point and the big reason that this rescue that's about to happen happens. And he even goes and talks to Batman, as if Batman would just talk to some jabroni off the street, even if it was Tim Drake's boyfriend. He'd be like, listen, get the fuck out of here. I'm actually doing something. But he's just like, oh, let me get down here and have a conversation with you.
Well, that's because Bernard is actually the hero of this series. He's the main character of this entire series. And it's been kind of obvious to me, at least, in the issues that you've kind of, forced me to read, because there's no way I'd read this fucking comic of my own volition. It's quite easy to identify the fact that Bernard is the hero. So, of course, at the end of the series, he's going to have to be the one that leads the heroic rescue party in to save Robin. And he's going to do that by somehow being a better Robin than Robin, somehow tracking down every member of the Bat family, even the ones that don't want to be found.
And it's not like Bruce Wayne doesn't keep track of his family. He's always showing up when they wouldn't have expected for the save, because he knows everything. So it kind of just goes against the Bruce Wayne character. But I guess Bernard, like you said, has to be the main hero. And even like when they do the final reveal, when he shows up and you've got the entire Bat family, in front of them are all the people from the marina. Well, that seems safe. And then it's Bernard up front, which I think he's got a sledgehammer or something. I don't think Batman would let this happen. I'm pretty sure he would lead the charge. And certainly, we've got Dick Grayson there. Nightwing's not doing that either. He's not letting some jabroni that can't handle himself jump into the action.
Batman be like, all right, and thanks. You let me know that, Robin's in danger. Great, thanks. Thank you for your service. Now get the fuck out of my way.
Oh, you don't want to stop and you actually want to come with me? Here, I'm going to drug you and make you pass out, and the butler or the car will drive you wherever you need to go. You're not coming with me.
Yeah, you're damn sure not coming with us. We got this. Just go home, kid. That's what Batman would do. But nope. Bernard's the hero of the comic, and this whole time he's been the main character. We just didn't know it. Now they're here to reinforce that in the final issue.
I thought it was embarrassing. This whole run has been embarrassing, really, not just for Meghan Fitzmartin. She probably thinks she did a good job, but just for DC Comics, I almost feel like at the end of, or was it the beginning of a Casino, where Robert De Niro says, nobody will ever make the mistake of giving some street thugs an entire casino to run ever again because we did such a bad job. I don't think DC will make the mistake of just hiring some dipshit off the street and giving them a somewhat high-profile Batman character again, because I can't imagine this going any worse.
I still imagine them doing it. They're going to suffer for the exact same poor thinking that every other big two editor does. We didn't make a terrible decision. We just weren't allowed to do enough of it yet.
So, Doc, I personally have decided that I'm not going to recommend Tim Drake Robin number 10. And in fact, I'm not going to recommend the entire series. I recommend you avoid it like the plague. Are you going to step out there and put your name behind Meghan Fitzmartin and Tim Drake Robin number 10? Give it the old recommend-a-rooney?
I'm going to recommend that you read it only to see how never, ever, ever to write a comic book, how never to make a comic book, how never to staff a comic book. This is a masterclass in incompetence.
What do you think the chances are that DC Comics can actually save a character like Tim Drake now? He's not the most important Robin. Obviously, that's Damian Wayne. He's not even the most important legacy Robin. I would say that's Nightwing at this point. He's not even the third most important, because I would say Jason Todd, Red Hood, is even a more viable character long term. There's a good chance that this just kind of kills the character, and we just don't see him anywhere other than showing up for a cameo here and there in a Batman or Nightwing comic book.
I think the next time you're going to see Tim Drake Robin is going to be in yet another Pride anthology, because that's the only thing that he exists for in the DC universe now.
Basically, he's just a cover model. You'll see him next June. Some of you may be skeptical, and you're like, you know what, Wes? You just don't know good writing. Meghan Fitzmartin, she seems like a nice gal. She could probably write a comic book. Well, I would like to point you to this. The big FU that she gave Peter David, one of the greatest writers of his generation, and his run on Young Justice. You have to see this to believe it. It is some of the worst writing in the history of comic books itself. See it right here. There's also a link in the video description.